The warm glow of late afternoon bathed the homestead in golden light as the group finished their evening tasks. Their homework was done, they'd practice for the death ball game tomorrow, and they didn't need to take on any jobs for quite a while, but they had all still decided to make themselves useful around their home while it was still daylight. Jack wiped sweat from his brow as he finished holding up a sheet of metal for the shuttle they had finally gotten around to begin fixing up, while Nika welded it to the frame. The old shirt he had worn for the dirty job was slung over his shoulder, and the heat of the late afternoon had left his chest damp with perspiration, drawing more than a few lingering gazes from the group scattered across the grounds. "Are you going to help or just stare?" he called playfully, raising an eyebrow in Scifi's direction from where the scritter had been tinkering with some electricals. "Hey, why not both?" Scifi shot back with a grin. "I can multitask, you know." "Yeah, right," Chio exclaimed from where she was floating in the air, feeding delicate wires through the inside of the metal shuttle frame, happy to seize upon the sudden distraction from the manual labour. "Not if the results of your latest maths homework is anything to go by." "Why do I need to bother? Maths is pointless as fuck," Scifi retorted. "Why the hell do I need to learn how to find X and Y, or what the angle of a fucking triangle is, when all I actually need to know is what's needed to program code, and how to do sums when getting paid, counting my ammo or bartering for cool shit?" "She has a point," Nika grinned. "What kind of career needs you to know that kind of stuff apart from maths teacher?" "Lots of things," Chio rolled her eyes. "Come on. I passed the latest exam at least," Scifi shrugged. "You could try doing better than just passing," Chio nagged, though Jack could see the Alethi try her best to hide her amused smile before trying to return to her task. "So, Nika, you said I just need to melt the metal to connect these wires?" "Yes, Chio, that's literally what soldering is." The Kizen snorted in amusement. "Come on. I know you take the industrial vocation class like the rest of us." Chio hesitated for a moment longer before very unconfidently applying the soldering iron to the wires. A faint puff of smoke rose and she wrinkled her nose. "This feels barbaric," she communicated, though she continued to fix up the wires. "Why won't this just go in?" Alora muttered through gritted teeth, rolling up the sleeves of her old sage-green blouse, which was fraying at the cuffs and patched at the elbows, as she knelt beside a section of the shuttle's interior, trying and failing to screw a metal bracket into place, holding her drill awkwardly with both hands as it spun slightly out of control. "That's what he said," Scifi immediately joked, to immediate laughter from the others. "How's everything coming along?" Alora called with a sigh, as she took a break from drilling, panting heavily from the effort. "I'm pretty sure the whole plating is coming along well enough," Nika shrugged, before tapping a patch where the welds looked rough. "But we still need to reinforce this section here and make sure it's sturdy enough. Last thing we want is for one of us to fall out of the bottom because a panel gets knocked loose." "I'm sure the welding isn't as bad as that," Scifi pointed out. "Hell, even if it is, we rode this thing pretty well when it was just a skeleton with an engine." "No we didn't," Jack scoffed. "I still remember what we did to land this thing." "It was not a pleasant trip," Chio agreed. "Besides, we have other things to add." "Yeah, sorry, Scifi. There's no way we're half-assing this one, especially when it involves high flying," Nika chuckled, as she finished off the current weld she was working on. "At least it won't take too long to have it welded to multiple points. Then we can test the durability out by having Jack whack it a couple of times." "Always happy to make myself useful," Jack muttered dryly, as he let go of where he was holding the sheet of scrap metal, happy to see that it sort of remained in place. He smiled and let out a contented sigh. It had been several weeks since they had met with Sable Kryn, and life for him and his friends had been relatively uneventful since then. Nobody had tried to kill them, they didn't need to do any jobs, and the worst they'd had to deal with was some pre-holiday exams. Every time he went to sleep, he hoped to wake up in his room back on Earth, like this was some weird fever dream. However, waking up instead to the sound of Scifi playing video games like a maniac downstairs no longer felt so bad. They'd all agreed to maintain a relatively low profile in the immediate aftermath of their latest job, partly to avoid any possible retaliation from megacorporations and other factions for them working for Corvin Enterprises, but mostly for what went down at Cypherport. While many eyewitness accounts have spoken up in praise of the group for their actions in slaying both the Redeemer and several of the hated Order of the Infernal Harmony, and also in protecting civilian lives during the ambush, just as many of the online rumours floating around the local matrix had accused them of being the ones behind the slaughter, and the reason for Cypherport being burned to the ground. Alora had told them not to worry about the misinformation spread online, either by the fog of war, online trolls, or their enemies looking to throw shit their way. It didn't help that the scene of the crime had since been claimed by House Malkar. Those motherfuckers. On top of that, the bounty for the Redeemer was officially contested. While Nika had done her due diligence and provided bodycam evidence to the Church of Syros that Jack was the one to score the kill, other claimants had apparently taken advantage of the chaos and claimed to have killed the Redeemer themselves. Though they didn't know if Commander Cocaine was one of these claimants, one of the most popular online rumours was that he had killed the Redeemer in a drug-fueled rampage and completely forgotten about it in the aftermath, something that had apparently happened before, and local betting pools had marked him as the likely killer. Had Jack not been the one to pull the trigger, he easily could have imagined it from what he'd seen of the guy on TV. As ridiculous as these claims were, the resulting investigations from the various parties that put out the hit and the hunters' guilds running the bounty listings would take some time to resolve. Not that it mattered to them in light of the payday from their last run. "Jack, look this way for a sec," a voice playfully called, and Jack turned around to spot Vanya sat down in the shade, leaning against the district wall with her camera pointed his way. And then there was Dante, who was lazily curled up next to her with bright eyes, panting from the heat of the day, his faintly glowing fur crackling softly with occasional sparks of electricity. He lifted his head occasionally to watch the group, his intelligent eyes following their movements, but for the most part, he was content to supervise from his resting spot, wagging his tails whenever he noticed one of them was looking his way. "And here we have the illustrious Jack, bravely doing manual labour in the sweltering heat," Vanya narrated, the rabbit girl grinning. "Is it heroism or just shirtless theatrics? We may never know." "Really, Vanya?" Jack sighed in amusement. "Hey, gotta get some shots for the blog." The tuner shamelessly grinned. "Not enough people know what you look like." "You do know there's an active bounty on me, right?" Jack pointed out. "People not knowing what I look like is probably a good thing." "You literally featured on local TV for fighting the clowns," Chia helpfully pointed out, "so anyone determined enough will probably work it out." "Well, it's not like we need to make it easy for them," Jack argued. "I'm sure there won't be any problems with our bounties," Alora argued. "We've still made a good impression in the city." "Oh, really?" Jack deadpanned. "Perhaps you've forgotten about the dude high on enough cocaine to make Pablo Escobar jealous that's threatened to go after absolutely anyone with an active bounty." "Hey, didn't he team up with Devil's Daughter?" Scifi asked. "That's some of the rumours flying about. Her bounty is higher than any of ours." "The rumours are it wasn't Commander Cocaine himself, more like one of his officers who got caught out," Chio added. "Though they are known to have taken out one of House Malkar's death squads, had Devil's Daughter not been there, it's likely they'd have all been killed or captured by them. They probably didn't have any choice in the matter." "Glad to see she's back at least," Nika grinned. "About time the city gets some good news." "Hope she's alright," Jack mentioned. "I mean, the fact she's back probably means she is, but she hasn't been seen since the party right after the night where she helped us out." "Maybe she just needed a break," Scifi shrugged. "Scifi, how is setting up the remote piloting working out?" Alora asked, as the Eladri awkwardly began trying to screw on a bracket. "It's alright," the Scritter shrugged. "I've got a basic cookie-cutter drone software I'm using, but the problem is configuring it for something this size. Power requirements, things not being to scale, you know, that kind of thing." "It's a shame there isn't a subject at school that teaches you how to work out things like that," Chio deadpanned, rolling her eyes. "Oh wait, there is one. It's called maths." "Yeah, and I have something to do all of that complicated stuff for me, Chio," Scifi snorted. "It's called a calculator, and I have software running that shit for me overnight while I do more interesting things. It's so much better than studying." "I think we're done for today," Alora announced, as she finished screwing on the bracket, ending the argument before it could begin. "We're not in any rush to get this done, and we've all done very well so far. Let's get back to it another day when we're fresh." "Sounds good to me," Chio agreed, as she hovered back to her normal height, more than happy to escape the manual labour. "What are our plans for tonight?" "Well, tomorrow is the last day of school before the holidays," Nika reasoned. "And that's when we're finally playing our deathball game." "About time we get a game," Scifi scoffed, having been rather annoyed that the following 2 of their scheduled games after playing against Luvia's team needed to be postponed. Though given their opponents had been affected by the recent clown attack and the following corporate war, she had understood Val agreeing with the opposing captains to reschedule their games for another date. "And after that we're heading to the Cathedral of Merriment after the game, since Kisareth and Arlox are now healthy enough to join us," Jack added. "I'm sure I'm not the only non-deathball player looking forward to tagging along for that." Vanya smiled with a wink at the human. "It'll be good to see you loosen up a bit." "So, considering our activities for the next couple of days, shall we go for a chill night watching some TV?" Allura asked the gathered group. "A chill night watching some TV," everyone agreed. "All right then," Allura smiled. "We've earned it." After a long day of working on the shuttle, the scent of soap and fresh clothes hung in the air as the team began settling down. Everyone had taken a brief cleansing dip in the hot tub, taking advantage of the magic of the Lesser Lifestone still unceremoniously sunk to the bottom to clean them up, and changed into more comfortable evening wear. Jack was sprawled on the largest of the collection of sofas they had, happy to relax his eyes and doze off on the productive afternoon as he let his head rest against the soft back cushions. Scifi, ever the opportunist, quickly flopped down next to him, stretching out her legs before casually resting her bare feet on his lap. Jack rolled his eyes but didn't protest, as his hands reflexively moved to knead at the soft skin of her feet, his thumbs pressing into the supple arches between the 4 large dexterous toes in each foot, before bringing his hand up to tickle them. It was a ritual the 2 of them had conducted many times over the weeks by this point, despite Jack's half-hearted protests. "You're getting way too comfortable with this," he chuckled, though the way his fingers still moved made it obvious he didn't mind. Across the room, Nika was curled up in an armchair, lazily scrolling through her datapad as her tail swished back and forth. She glanced up, an amused smirk playing on her lips. "You know, I should probably be demanding the same service of you." "Hey, I'm not getting up for that," Jack snorted. From the far end of the room, Allura and Chio sat near a small table, sipping from warm mugs of herbal tea. Allura, dressed in a soft blue nightgown with a thin cardigan draped over her shoulders, had a content smile on her face as she observed them all. "You do look quite at home like that, Jack," she giggled. "You've come a long way since you first started living here." Chio, dressed in her usual oversized hoodie and shorts, gave a thoughtful nod of agreement, watching closely. "I agree," she quickly murmured telepathically, taking a sip of her tea before she smirked. "Oh, and I'm definitely next in line for foot massage privileges." "Oh no, we're not making this a thing," Jack chuckled. "Yeah, it's just an exclusive one-of-a-kind service for me only," Scifi grinned. "Someone should take a picture and stick it up on my face," Nika suggested with an amused grin. "I agree, we totally should." Allura quickly agreed with a mischievous smirk, snapping a picture on her comlink before Jack even had a chance to try and look natural. Eventually, Vanya arrived, freshly showered and wearing a loose tank top and comfortable cotton shorts. "So, what did I miss?" "Just me training Jack into being the perfect stress relief tool," Scifi shrugged, as the others laughed. "Hey, that sounds like a good idea," the tuner answered with a playful grin, as with deliberate laziness, she shifted over and plopped down right next to Jack, twisting around to casually lay down on the sofa, stretching her legs out over his lap and wiggling her toes. "If you're offering foot massages, Jack, I just hate to be left out," she purred. "I worked so hard today." "You didn't do shit," Nika snorted. "Hey, someone had to supervise all of you," the tuner answered brightly, though she gave Jack a wink from her laid-down position. "Who are we waiting for, anyway?" "A couple of others," Chio answered. "I think the Squawka are having some pre-game nerves about their first deathball game tomorrow, and a few of the others are trying to finish their homework." "Probably, but with all the practice we've done, they should be totally fine for the game," Scifi mentioned. "But don't change the subject, Vanya." "I have no idea what you mean," Vanya chuckled, though she didn't help her case as she poked Jack in the chest with one of her rabbit-like feet, before playfully hovering it in his face. Jack, your services are required. You're lucky you've got fur, Jack snorted, as he pushed the foot back down and idly began running his fingers through the soft brown hairs. At least I don't have to deal with cold feet like some people have. Scifi gasped in mock offence, as Jack tickled one of her toes again to show he was only joking. Excuse you, my feet are a perfectly acceptable temperature. I don't know, Vanya definitely has you beat, he grinned, resuming Scifi's massage while giving Vanya's foot a testing press. Her warm fur was softer than he expected, and she let out a pleased hum. Not bad, Earth Boy, Vanya teased, ears flicking as she brought herself up in a pull-up and leaned against his shoulder. I could get used to this. Allura smiled behind her tea as she checked her comlink. And as expected, Luvia was rather quick to reply to my post. I suspect she's now in the queue. Jack rolled his eyes but didn't stop. Damn freeloaders. The room filled with laughter, as the sounds of footsteps echoed down the hall as several of the others joined them, with Kazan, Bentham, Obida and the Squaw Car chatting excitedly, likely about their plans for work in the future, while Hessia and a few others dutifully followed behind. The scent of fresh snacks followed, as someone set down a tray of popcorn and drinks on the coffee table. All right, we're here now. Budge over. Kazan grinned, squeezing onto the couch. Sorry guys, we needed to have a meeting about something. No apology needed, Allura smiled. How are things going? Need any help or advice from us? All good, Zell smiled. We were just looking for some jobs to do. We might need your advice on something later, but it can wait, Bentham shrugged. Right now we could do with a break, and we have a game tomorrow. Too right, Kazan grinned. What are we all watching anyway? That's a good question, Chio said. Scifi and Vanya both perked up, causing Jack to shift uncomfortably as the movement poked him in the nuts. Something trashy, Scifi said. Something fun, Vanya added. Allura sighed as she took another swig of tea. Something not filled with mindless explosions. Chio pushed up her glasses. Something educational. Jack groaned, leaning back into the cushions. We're going to be here all night arguing, aren't we? Nika smirked, thumb hovering over the button of the remote. Pretty much, but hey, when I've got the remote, democracy isn't a concern. She clicked the button to turn the TV onto something random, only for the latest news headlines to appear.